Morning, everyone. I hope you are still fine and doing well, especially that we are still in the pandemic and we are still not allowed to have the face-to-face classroom discussion. Now, for today, we will be having the discussion on the different concepts with respect to your module for this week. Now, by the way, your module for this week is entitled Understanding Typhoons. Okay? To begin with, let us first have the objectives for this lesson. Okay, let me read. At the end of this lesson, you, the student, should be able to do the following. Letter A, describe typhoon and its parts. Letter B, explain the formation of typhoons. Letter C, determine the effects of land masses and bodies of water to the typhoon. And letter D, cite some precautionary measures before, during, and after a typhoon. Okay. Now, before we proceed to the lesson proper, I have here a simple activity. Okay, I will be showing you some pictures and you are going to tell me what can you see among those pictures that I am going to show you. Now, students, since we will not be having a real-time interaction where I can ask you question and respond to me instantly, what we will be having instead is that I am going to post a pinned comment on on a particular lesson thread where I am going to post this video lesson. Now on that pinned comment, you can have the responses on the different questions that I might ask you. Okay, and do not worry because I'm still going to post questions that you have to answer on that pinned comment. So you will be guided in answering those questions. Okay. Now let us have this first picture. What can you see in here? Okay, as we can see, we have here a devastated place. Okay, wherein we can see fallen trees blocking the roads. How about in this second picture? What do you see in here? Okay, we can see in here a scenario wherein people are struggling with floods. Okay, they are struggling from moving from one place to another because of the rushing water brought by flood. And lastly, we have this one. What can you see in here? Okay, now in this particular picture, we can see a very large area being submerged in water. Now, what do you think is the relation of the previous pictures that I have shown you to our topic for today or for this day? Okay. Now, those pictures that I have shown you show us the different effects that a typhoon or result that a typhoon might bring to us once it hits our place. And I know that we are not anymore new in this particular scenario because if we are going to remember last year, we have experienced three consecutive typhoons, diba? Okay, and it almost hampered our learning since we were not able to have the distribution and retrieval of modules. Now we have experienced this one. We have experienced road being blocked by fallen trees. Some areas were submerged and experienced flooding. Now these are, as I've said, are the results that we might obtain once a typhoon hits our place. Okay? Now, what really is a typhoon? Ano nga ba talaga ang isang bagyo? Okay, let us describe what a typhoon is. Let me read. It is said in here that a typhoon is a weather phenomenon described as a storm with winds swirling around the center that occurs in the western Pacific Ocean. So basically, from this definition, we can see the three defined characteristics of a typhoon. Number one, it is a storm. It is characterized by storm. And what do we experience when we have stormy weather? Okay, if when we have stormy weather, we experience very large amount of precipitation or rainfall. Malakas yung mga ulan at medyo madami, di ba? Yan yung experience natin once we are having a stormy weather. Another one is that typhoon is also characterized by winds swirling around a center. Now, later on with our discussion, we will discuss the anatomy or the parts of a typhoon. And we can really see, for example, in this image, that there is a center or particular point wherein we can see bands of swirling winds or clouds. Okay? Now, aside from the rain, heavy rains that a typhoon brings because it is a storm, it can also bring strong winds. That is why during typhoon, we experience light to moderate to heavy rains that sometimes causes great devastation to, for example, houses made up of light materials. For example, yung mga kubo, madali lang silang masira whenever a typhoon hits a certain place. And lastly, a typhoon originates from the Western Pacific Ocean. Okay? So those are the three characteristics of a typhoon. Number one, it is a storm. Secondly, it is characterized by swirling winds circulating around the center. And lastly, it originates from the Western Pacific Ocean. Now, I have here a map taken from a globe. Imagine niyo yung globe, di ba? Alam niyo kung anong globo? Yung globo, kinuha natin yung surface niya. Ito ang itsura niya kapag nilay natin flat on a surface. Now, sabi daw, from the definition of the typhoon, it originates from the Western Pacific Ocean. And in this particular image, we can see this point signifying the origin of a typhoon. But if you're going to remember, the orientation of the different directions goes this way. You have here at the top, we have the north. At the bottom, we have the south. At the left, we have the west. And at the right, we have the east. So how does the definition said that typhoon originates from the Western Pacific Ocean, wherein we can see that it is in the eastern part of the globe. Okay, now our reference main frame of reference in here will be the Pacific Ocean. Now, when we lay the Pacific Ocean flat into a surface, ito yung itsura ng Pacific Ocean na laid flat on a surface. Okay? We have here the American continent, the North and South America. We have here the Asian, including the Philippine and the Australian continent. Now, this is the Pacific Ocean, the largest body of water in the planet. At the right side of the Pacific Ocean, it is the so-called the Eastern Pacific Ocean. And at the left side of the Pacific Ocean, it is the so-called the Western Pacific Ocean. So this is the area wherein our country belongs. So that is why, okay, yung point ng origin ng mga typhoon is the Western Pacific Ocean. Okay? In this particular map taken from a globe, ito yung Eastern Pacific Ocean. Ito naman yung ito yung Western Pacific Ocean area near the Asian continent. Samantalang nandito naman yung Eastern Pacific Ocean, yung area ng Pacific Ocean near the American continents, the North and South America. Okay? So I hope that is clear to you that if we're going to look at the map, really, typhoon originates from the western part of the Pacific or the Western Pacific Ocean. Now, another question is, have you heard the word typhoon, hurricanes, and cyclones? Narinig niyo na ba yung mga terms na yan? Okay, you might hear this following terms or words from news, di ba? Lalo na kung nanonood kayo ng mga balita galing sa ng iba't ibang channel mula sa iba't ibang bansa. Okay? Now, ang tatlong ito, they have common among them. They have their similarity. They are all characterized by storm and they are all characterized by swirling winds, malalakas na hangin. Kaya lang, how do they differ? Ba? Paano sila nagkakaiba-iba? Parehas sila nagdadala ng malalakas na hangin at nagdadala ng malalakas na ulan. Pero ano yung pinagkaiba-iba nila? Bakit meron silang kanya-kanyang pangalan? Why it is called typhoon, not hurricane, not cyclone? And why is hurricane not called typhoon and not cyclone? Bakit kaya? What is their big difference? Okay, their difference lies on the geographical location where they originated from. Okay? Tingnan natin kung ano yung pinagkaiba-iba ng tatlong ito based on the location of their origin. Okay. First, we have the typhoon. We have said that the typhoon originates from the Western Pacific Ocean. Second, we have the cyclones. In this particular illustration, what ocean do cyclones originate from? Okay, very good. From the Indian Ocean. Kaya yung nararanasan na weather disturbance, having stormy weather and characterized of swirling wind, na bumibisita for example dito sa bansang Africa, basta nag-originate sa Indian Ocean, ang tawag doon ay cyclone and not typhoon. And by the way, ang isa pang tawag sa typhoon is tropical storm kasi near siya sa tropical countries. Just like the Philippines, Guam, Indonesia, and Malaysia. Okay? And lastly, we have the hurricanes. Yung hurricanes naman, ito yung mga storm that originate in the Atlantic and the Eastern Pacific Ocean. Hurricanes visits the American continents. Okay? Okay? Remember, if a storm originate from the Pacific Ocean, from the Western Pacific Ocean, what it is called? Okay, it is called typhoon. How about if it originated from the Indian Ocean? It is called cyclone. How about if it came from the Eastern Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean? Very good. It is called hurricanes. Okay, so I hope clear ito sa inyo. They are all storm having strong winds, but they differ on their origin or the location of their origin. Now, let us move on to the typhoon nomenclature. When we say nomenclature or nomenclature class, it is having to do with naming. Diba? If you can observe the different typhoons that visit our place or our country in particular is given their own name. Diba? Example, meron mga bagyo pinangalan Santi, Tino, Marcia, Glenda, Yolanda, di ba? Those are the names of some typhoons na bumisita sa ating bansa. Now, what do you observe on the names of the typhoon that visits our country? Okay, number one, they are being ordered. Okay? Having the first typhoon, its name will start from letter A. Yung pangalawang bagyo, ang pangalan niya magsisimula sa letter B. The same with the third, okay? Sa letter C naman siya, so on and so forth. Now, how about kung naubos na pala yung letter of the alphabet? Ano nang mangyayari? Okay, magsisimula ulit sa letter A. How about naman if natapos na yung isang taon pero hindi pa nauubos yung letter of the alphabet. For example, December 25 yung last typhoon, okay? And ang huli niyang pangalan ay Tisoy. So ano na yung sunod na pangalan ng bagyo? Saan na magsisimula? By comes January. Okay, magsisimula ulit sa letter A. Hindi na magsisimula sa U, sa V, sa W, X, Y, Z. Simula ulit sa letter A. Now, aside from that, what do you observe doon sa mga pangalan ng mga bagyo in terms of femininity or masculinity? Commonly, panlalaki ba o pambabae ba ang pangalan ng mga bagyo na dumarating sa ating bansa? Okay. Now, commonly, we can observe feminine name given among the different typhoons that visit our country. And what do you think is the reason behind that? Bakit kaya kadalasan pangalan ng mga babae ang ibinibigay na pangalan sa mga bagyo sa ating bansa? What is common among women and typhoon or tropical storm? Okay. Diba? Yung mga women, it is said that they have the tendency to easily change their mind. Just like them, just like the attitude of the women, yung mga bagyo naman, typhoons have the tendency to easily change direction. So that is why most of the names of typhoon that visit our country are taken from women's name or feminine name. And another trivia class, uh, alam nyo ba na yung mga pangalan ng mga malalakas na bagyo na nagdulot ng napakatinding pinsala sa ating bansa, hindi na yun mauulit. For example, the Typhoon Yolanda, never na yung ibibigay sa isa pang bagyo. Okay, and what do you think is the reason behind that? Okay, okay, very good. Kasi in order for us to not reminisce the devastation of that particular typhoon anymore. Kasi napaka-pumapinsala niya talaga. Okay? So that is about the typhoon nomenclature. And what is the agency, government agency responsible in doing that? Okay, it is the Philippine Atmospheric and Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration or simply the PAG-ASA. So kapag may bagyo, anong agency ang dapat nating puntahan, especially sa Facebook group or sa Facebook page? It is the PAG-ASA, hindi PhilBox, hindi MMDA. Dapat PAG-ASA. Okay? Okay, now activity time. So for this particular part of our lesson, you can have this on your module. In your module, there are different activities, especially just like the sequencing of events on the formation of typhoon, the different parts of typhoon, the effects of land masses and bodies of water to typhoon. So you can answer them. Okay. Now, what I will be going to give you this time is a discussion on the concept that might help you in answering those questions or activities in your module. So, pwede itong makatulong sa inyo habang sinasagutan nyo yung different activity na nandiyan sa modules. Okay, let us first have the anatomy of a typhoon. No, class, when we say anatomy, it has something to do with the parts of an object being described. So in this case, since we are talking about the anatomy of a typhoon, so we will be talking here about, we will be dealing here about the different parts of a typhoon. Okay. So in this presentation, I have here a satellite image of a typhoon. So ito yung actual satellite image ng isang bagyo. Yung mga puting yan, those are clouds. And those clouds carry a lot of rain and strong winds. Now, let us describe the parts or the anatomy of a typhoon. Isa-isahin natin. Okay, at the center, at the, on the illustration pointed with a red circle, okay, this is called the eye. When we say the eye, it is the center of the typhoon characterized by a low pressure area. But mind you, it is ironic though that areas under the eye of the typhoon experience very calm weather during its devastation, its landfall. Kapag yung yung lugar na kung saan naglandfall ang mata ng bagyo, it is ironic na yung nararanasan nilang weather is very calm, parang walang bagyo. Yun yung pwedeng maranasan ng isang lugar na tinamaan ng isang bagyo, ng mata ng isang bagyo. Kaya lang, okay, yung typhoon natin, it is moving. Nagmo-move yung typhoon. After na maglandfall ng eye ng mata ng bagyo sa isang particular area or particular place, and that particular place experience very calm weather, here comes another part of the eye described or pointed by the circle one. It is called the eye wall. The eye wall has a bands of clouds surrounding the eye characterized or described as the part of the typhoon with the strongest winds. Ito na yung parte ng bagyo na nagtataglay ng pinakamalalakas na hangin at malalakas na ulan. Kaya naman, after a place or after a typhoon has made a landfall on a particular place and that place experience a very calm weather, ang susunod na nung mangyayari is great devastation. Great devastation because the eye wall has the strongest and has the strongest winds and rains na pwedeng dalhin ng isang bagyo. Kaya after the calm, here comes the storm. Yan yung kasabihan na dapat tandaan natin, especially kapag yung lugar natin is one of the forecasted place na pwedeng paglandfallan ng isang bagyo. And lastly, we have Yung region pointed by the circle, by the yellow circle area, it is called the bands. We have two type of bands. We have the inner rain bands and we have the outer rain bands. Few kilometers extending from the eye wall, ang tawag natin dyan ay inner rain bands. Now, ano yung pwedeng ma-experience ng mga lugar na nasa ilalim or ninanalasa ng inner rain bands? Those area will experience very strong wind pero yung ulan medyo kaunti lang. Okay? Whereas, yung area naman extending from the inner rain bands, ang tawag naman dito ay mga outer rain bands. And what the area under the outer rain bands will experience? Okay, ang may experience nila is very strong rain pero yung wind uh, hindi naman masyadong kalakasan kumpara sa inner rain bands. Pero hindi ibig sabihin na mahinang mga hangin lang yun. Mas mahina lang yun kumpara sa inner rain bands at sa eye wall. Okay? So again, these are the different parts comprising a typhoon. At the center, what do we call this one? It is the eye. At paano natin dinidescribe ang isang eye ng isang typhoon? It is of low pressure area wherein yung mga bands of clouds are swirling around. And extending beyond the eye or the area surrounding the eye, anong tawag natin doon? We call this one as the eye wall. And extending the eye wall are the bands of clouds called the inner and the outer rain bands. The inner rain bands brings very strong winds pero yung ulan medyo kaunti lang. Sorry. Tama. Very strong winds pero yung ulan medyo kaunti lang. However, the outer rain bands bring intense rain pero much lighter wind compared with the inner rain bands. Okay? Now, let us move on to the formation of typhoon. How are typhoons born? Paano sila pinapanganak? Diba? Paano kaya sila napo-form yung mga typhoon? Now, in this particular part of our lesson, we will see here the different factors to consider for a typhoon to form. Okay, number one, we need a large, still, warm ocean area with temperature above 26.5 degrees Celsius. Kailangan natin ng isang very large body of water or ocean. That is why, if you are going to remember, saan nagsisimula ang mga typhoon? Where do they originate? Very good. They originate from ocean waters. Yung Indian Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, at yung Pacific Ocean. Because one of the factors needed for a typhoon to form is a large ocean area. Hindi lang basta-basta large ocean area, kundi kailangan din is warm. Na merong temperature above its surface of at least 26.5 degrees Celsius. So yung temperatura above the surface of that ocean, kailangan meron siyang minimum na 26.5 degrees Celsius. Kapag umabot na yun sa 26.5 degrees Celsius and above, pwede na magsimula ng typhoon. Okay, I have here a question. What do you think is the relation between the issue of global warming and the frequent typhoon that visits or form in the Pacific Ocean? And not just in the Pacific Ocean, but in the whole world. Ano kaya yung relasyon ng global warming sa madalas or maraming bagyo na napo-form sa mga ocean system natin? Okay, very good. Now, since we have said that one of the primary factors to consider in the typhoon formation is the temperature of the ocean, okay, or the area above the ocean, above the surface of the ocean. Since we have global warming, okay, madali na lang mainit yung dagat. And as a result, more typhoons might develop from that particular area. Kaya naman, since mainit na mainit yung ating mundo, okay, because of global warming, yung temperature natin tumataas o bumababa? Okay, very good, tumataas. And since tumataas yung temperature natin, yung ocean system din natin, tumataas o bumababa ang temperature? tumataas din. And because of that, okay, yung 26.5 degrees Celsius na minimum requirement for a typhoon to form, madali na lang itong maabot ng mga ocean system. That is why more and more typhoons are formed nowadays compared centuries before. That is why global warming is a very is a dangerous threat. Okay? It's a great threat to humanity, not just to humanity, but to all the creatures living on the planet. Okay, next one. Aside from the warm ocean with an area above it having the temperature of at least 25 degrees Celsius, another thing that we need to consider in typhoon formation are the low altitude winds. The low altitude winds are also needed to form a tropical cyclone or typhoon. The air becomes warm, expands, and rises. So in here we have an ocean with an area above its surface of a temperature having a temperature of 26.5 degrees Celsius. Kasabay nun, meron tayong mga blowing winds, mga low altitude winds, mga mabababa lang na hangin. What do you think will happen to the low altitude winds? Anong mangyayari sa kanila? Once they happen to pass by a body of ocean na merong warm temperature, iinit ba sila or lalamig? Will they become warm or will they become colder? Siyempre, they will become colder. Now, warmer, sorry. They will become warmer. Now, if you are going to remember your lesson on the convection current, what will happen to the warm air? They will expand. And once they expand, what is their tendency? Will they move up or will they move down? Okay, very good. Their tendency is to move up. That is why we have the low altitude winds. Therefore, we have the low altitude winds, okay, passing by a very warm ocean system. The low altitude winds are heated, they expand, and their tendency is to rise up. So, hindi na, imbis papunta sana doon dire-diretso yung hangin, hindi na, matatrap na sila sa particular area na ito. Kasi ang direction na nila is pataas na, hindi na papunta sa side 1. Ay na mangyayari, more and more winds will be blowing in this area. Okay? Why? Kasi ito yung mangyayari. Okay. Now, we have the rising air because of the very warm ocean system na meron tayo dito. Saan galing yung rising air? From the low altitude winds being warmed by the warm ocean system. What is the tendency of the rising air? Ano ang mangyayari sa kanya as it moves upward? Will it lose heat or will it gain heat? Will it gain heat? Siyempre, it will lose heat. Diba? It will lose heat, and what will happen to the air once it loses heat? It will become colder or warmer? It will become colder. Now, based on the convection current, your lesson on convection current, what will happen to colder air? Will they move up or will they sink down? They will. Very good. They will sink down. So we have here warm air rising. Tataas sila ng tataas, but once they move up, they have the tendency to lose heat, and therefore they will become colder. And when they become colder, their tendency is to sink down. Bumalik dito. Kaya lang, ito yung sabi, rising air cools, condenses, and forms huge clouds in the troposphere. Kasabay ng pagtaas ng mga ng warm air natin, they cool down, they form cloud. At yung hangin naman na malamig, babalik siya dito sa baba. Ano ang mangyayari sa malamig na hangin na pumupunta sa baba? Okay? The cold air sinking down. Okay? Babalik siya dito sa lugar, sa area wherein yung ocean system natin is warm. Ano kaya ang mangyayari sa kanya? Will it become colder or will it become warmer? Okay, magiging warmer na siya. Okay, again, diba? We have an ocean system, warm ocean system. Meron tayong low altitude winds. Because of the warm ocean system, yung low altitude winds natin naging mainit, they expand and they rise up. Okay? Once they rise up, they become colder, forming clouds, and yung cold air natin will sink down based on the convection current. At kapag nakatouch naman sila or once they come near to the warm ocean system, iinitin na naman sila ulit. Okay? So we have a convection current happening in this area, a vertical convection current. Remember, habang nangyayari yung vertical convection current kung saan yung warm air ay nire-replace ng cold air, iniinit ulit, lalamig, iinit ulit, meron tayong more and more altitude winds na papasok sa particular area na ito. Okay? And this area is now what we call the low pressure area. Okay? The low pressure area draws more and more low altitude winds. Kaya yung system na nabubuo sa ocean, ibabaw ng ocean, yung weather disturbance, lumalaki ng lumalaki. Okay? As the air rises faster and faster to fill the low air pressure, more warm air is drawn from the sea and sucking cool air downward. More and more altitude winds are being drawn into the low pressure area. That is why the tendency, okay, more and more like altitude winds, low altitude winds, papasok dito, more and more cloud formation ang mangyayari. And since nare-recycle lang yung cold and warm air dito, darami ng darami yung hangin natin in this particular area. And those winds will be recycled, will undergo the convection current. Okay, they will heat up, they will become colder, and then will be heat up again, colder, become heat up again. It just continues until the typhoon forms. Okay. Now the last one is that the force created by the Earth's rotation on a tilted axis causes the air rising to spiral around the center. Okay, if you're going to look at this one, the convection current or the flow of convection current is downward and upward, meaning we have a vertical convection current. Pataas, pababa. Kaya lang, because of the force created by the Earth's rotation known as the Coriolis effect, okay? Because of the Coriolis effect, yung force na yun, it will force the circulating air to spiral around. Imbis na pababa, pataas pababa, ang mangyayari, yung convection current natin because of Coriolis effect, ang direction nila is sideward. They will spiral around. Kaya wala tayong bagyo na parang ganito, pataas pababa. Ang bagyo natin is moving sideward. What is the cause? It is because of the Coriolis effect forcing the circulating cold and warm air to spiral around. Okay? So, naintindihan? Okay, we have here a summary of the formation of typhoon. Okay? We have at the bottom, we have a warm area. Siyempre, sa taas, we have a cold area. Kasi as the altitude increases, the temperature decreases. Kaya lumalamig habang tumataas ang habang tumataas tayo sa isang lugar, lumalamig yung temperatura natin. Okay. Ano yung unang kailangan? What is the first thing that we need for to consider in typhoon formation? Number one, we need a warm ocean system with at least 26.5 degrees Celsius. Kaya lang, as we have said, because of global warming, yung temperature nito, madali na lang itong ma-obtain ng mga ocean system natin. And as a result, what will happen? Okay, very good. More and more typhoon are being formed in the different ocean systems. Sa Indian Ocean, lalo na sa Pacific Ocean. Kasi yung Pacific Ocean, saan siya matatagpuan? Is it near the equator or not? Okay, malapit na malapit sa equator. And anong sunlight ang nare-receive ng mga lugar sa equator? Direct or indirect? Very good, direct sunlight. Kaya mas mainit yung Pacific Ocean natin. Okay, now we have warm ocean system. We're having a temperature of 26.5 degrees Celsius. Ang sunod na mangyayari, kailangan natin are the low altitude winds. Ano ang mangyayari sa mga low altitude winds? Once they pass by an area wherein body of ocean is at least 26.5 degrees Celsius, it will become warmer or colder? It will become warmer. And what will happen to warm air? Will it rise or will it sink? It will expand and therefore it will rise. Okay, what will happen to the rising warm air as it moves upward? Will it lose heat or will it gain heat? It will lose heat and therefore the warm air will cool down. And once the warm air cools down, cloud formation happens. And because of yung hangin natin sa region na ito, dahil malamig ito, kung saan po-form yung cloud, yung air dito is colder kumpara sa lugar na ito. And what will happen to colder air? They will sink down or will rise up? Okay, very good. Colder air contracts and they will sink down. So we will have a vertical convection current. The warm air rising above being replaced by the cold air. Okay? Ano yung nagpapainit sa cold air? The warm ocean system. Kaya lang, as we have said, because of the Coriolis effect, instead of having a vertical convection current, Coriolis effect forces the circulating wind to spiral around the center. That is why wala tayong bagyo na ganito yung circulation, pataas pa baba. Instead, we have the typhoon circulating sideward. Okay? So I hope you understand the concept on how typhoons form. Okay, now let us go on to this one. Where do typhoons form? Saan napoforma ang mga bagyo? Saan sila nag-originate? Okay. Now, in the globe, we have the so-called intertropical convergence zone. It is located near at the equator. Yan. Let me read. The intertropical convergence zone is a belt of low pressure girdling Earth near the equator. So dati na siyang low pressure na nasa may Earth's equator lang. The air convergences at the surface towards this low pressure and then rises forming a band of clouds and convection current. Okay, so ito yung interconvergence zone. Kapag July, nandito siya sa may taas ng equator. Kapag January, nandito siya sa may baba ng equator. Okay? And another thing that you have to consider on the intertropical convergence zone is that since it is located near the equator, just above and under the equator, okay, ang equator receives direct sunlight. So therefore, the ocean system in here, with respect to their temperature, has a greater or higher temperature than the rest. Okay? Mas mataas yung temperature sa intertropical convergence zone kung saan nandito yung equator kumpara sa mga lugar na nasa taas at nasa baba ng equator. That is why here is our country, the Philippines. Okay? Yung temperature natin is very warm. Okay? This is the reason why our country is frequently visited by typhoons. Okay? Aside from that, as we can also see in the intertropical convergence zone, there is the convergence of warm air as well as the cold air. And that circulation is very much needed in the formation of typhoon. Yung pag-circulate ng warm air at cold air natin, they are needed in the formation of typhoon. Okay, now let us move on to the effects of land masses and bodies of water in the typhoon or in typhoon. Okay. Ano ba yung epekto ng mga land masses natin at ng mga bodies of water natin sa typhoon? 'Di ba? As we experience we really experience that typhoon moves. Ito, gumagalaw yung mga bagyo natin. And once a typhoon moves, it can either hit an area with landmass or with bodies of water. Pwede silang tumama sa lupa, pwede naman yung bagyo ay tumama sa tubig. Ngayon, ano yung epekto ng pagtama ng bagyo sa lupa at pagtama niya sa isang body of water? Okay. Now, let us have first the effect of landmass to typhoon. Ano ang epekto ng land masses to typhoon? Okay, my question is, as you have experienced, what happened to the typhoon once it made a landfall? Ano nangyayari sa strength ng bagyo kapag naglandfall na siya? Does it gain more strength or will it become weaker? Okay. Remarkably, landforms reduce the strength of typhoons whenever the winds impact them. Kapag ang bagyo tumama na sa lupa, it will now start to lose its strength. One of the reason behind that is that yung moisture on the land masses is very much fewer than bodies of water. And another one is that yung air natin on the land mass has the tendency to lose more heat than the land masses. Kaya mas malamig yung mga air natin sa mga land masses kumpara sa mga bodies of water. In other words, sorry, mas madaling lumamig yung hangin sa land masses kumpara sa mga bodies of water. And if you remember, warm air or mainit na hangin is one of the factor na kailangan sa formation ng bagyo. Kaya naman, sa pag tumama ng isang bagyo sa kalupaan, since madaling lumamig ang hangin dyan, it will now start to lose its strength. Okay? Another one is that, what is now the effect of, it is not land masses, it is bodies of water to typhoon. Ano naman ang epekto ng bodies of water sa typhoon? In a very general sense, typhoons gain power as they move over warm bodies of water and start losing energy once get over cold water. Diba? If we are watching news, especially when there is a typhoon, we might experience seeing that once a typhoon made a landfall, it has the tendency to regain its strength once mag-move naman siya over a body of water. Diba? Tumama na sa lupa yung bagyo, humina siya, pero pag dumaan naman siya sa katubigan, sa isang ocean, lalakas na naman siya. Okay? That is because especially when that ocean contains warmer temperature, syempre, warmer temperature na naman doon, nandoon, may warm air na naman doon na pwedeng mag-circulate sa low pressure area and will be na pwedeng i-drone sa low pressure area na contain ng isang bagyo. Kaya yung mga warm air na yon, papasok yun sa eye ng bagyo which contains the low pressure area. Kaya naman magre-regain ulit siya ng strength. Pero kung cold area ang nadaanan niya, or in other words, if it happened to pass by a body of water with a cold temperature, it will lose its strength. Kasi wala siyang madodraw na warm air papunta sa kanyang low pressure area. And its tendency is to lose more air na nasa loob niya. Okay? Yeah. So I hope you understand this one. Once a typhoon made a landfall, it will now start to reduce its strength. But if a typhoon happens to pass by a body of water where a warm temperature, it will regain its strength. Okay. Now let us now move on to what are the things that we need to do before, during, and after a typhoon. So I am just going to read this one because these are very much self-explanatory, and I think that most of us are now practicing this one. Okay, but mind you, these practices are very important. So even though I will just read this one. So take this as an important guide as a life surviving practices na kailangan nating gawin whenever a typhoon visits our place or our area. Okay? Number one, before a typhoon, help your family check and fix your house for any damage so it can withstand the strong winds. Okay? Bago ang bagyo, yan, yung mga dapat ipako nyo na. Okay? Check kung meron kayong mga bubong na madali lang tangayin ng hangin. Okay? Another one, stock up an adequate supply of drinking water and water for cleaning and other purposes. Yan, yung mga supplies, yung mga food and water supplies, kailangan natin yan because when a typhoon came, makakalabas pa ba tayo? Pwede tayong makalabas pero there is a very high risky siya. Okay, pwede natin ikamatayan. Kaya it is advisable not to go out whenever a typhoon strike your area. Kailangan nasa loob na lang kayo. And since nasa loob na lang kayo, kailangan yung tubig, enough na yun para sa ilang days na pangangailangan nyo. Prepare flashlights, batteries for flashlights, and radio candles and kerosene lamps and other lighting devices. Kasi madalas, kapag merong bagyo, nawawalan din tayo ng kuryente. Prepare first aid kit. It is very important. It is a very advisable practice that an home must have at least one first aid kit. Kailangan meron first aid kit sa isang tahanan. Kasi accidents nga, they are inevitable. They are hindi natin inaasahan. Okay? Unpredicted events. Okay, always monitor news about the typhoon, whether on television or radio. If power is cut, keep a radio and tune into the news. Now, nowadays, ang tendency natin is to look into the Facebook page of Pag-asa. Maganda yun, okay? Kaya lang kapag nalubat na tayo, okay, we can have the battery-operated radios just to make ourselves tuned in to the latest news about the weather disturbance that visits or rampaging our place. Yan. Teach younger members of your family what to do during typhoon. Okay, yung mga bata, turuan, i-guide kung ano yung mga dapat gawin kapag merong isang bagyo. Hindi yung merong bagyo, nagmo-mobile legend na. Hindi yung ganun. Okay, next. What to do during a typhoon? Ano naman ang dapat natin gawin kapag meron ng bagyo? Stay calm and be alert. Do not panic. That is the very first thing that we need to do kapag merong sakuna. Kahit hindi bagyo yan na nararanasan natin, we must stay calm. Okay? Kasi kapag calm tayo, nakakaisip tayo ng mas maigi. Pero kapag panicking tayo, there is a tendency to make incorrect judgment and take actions based on incorrect judgment. Another one, stay indoors, postpone plans of travels or errands. Yan. Stay indoors. It is not advisable to go outside during typhoon. Next one, monitor weather reports. Yan. Pwedeng sa radio, sa cellphone, sa TV, kung meron pang kuryente, or if not, kung wala na talaga, sa cellphone, kung may charge pa, pero kung wala na talaga, sa mga battery-operated radios na lang. Next one, when local authorities advise you to evacuate, lalong-lalo na doon sa mga area near the bodies of water, sa mga malalapit sa ilog, mga malalapit sa dagat, as well as sa mga area that are prone to landslide. Move family pets and vulnerable to a safe place, turn off gas, bulbs, electricity, and water when safe to do so. And if your roofs have very little vents where the winds pass through, or sometimes when the winds of a typhoon are very strong, you may need to open few windows in the opposite side of the house to let the wind pass through. Kapag ito yung isa sa mga practices ng mga matatanda na pwede nating matutunan mula sa kanila. Sabi nila, kapag nasira na daw yung kapag nakapasok na daw yung hangin sa bahay natin, for example, nabutas na yung bintana, kailangan nating buksan yung bintana sa opposite side niya. Bakit? Just to let the air pass through, para yung hangin hindi siya umikot-ikot sa loob ng bahay natin. Okay? Para hindi tangayin yung bubong natin. Okay? And then, monitor flood reports and predictions. Lalong-lalo na if you are near on the area na mayroong mga bodies of water such as, yun nga, yung sinabi ko, rivers. Okay, what to do after typhoon? Pagkatapos naman ng bagyo, yan. Have a knowledgeable person inspect electrical wiring before using electrical appliances. Lalong-lalo na if it happened to that your area is submerged in water, kung nalubog sa baha yung lugar ninyo. Okay? Before using the appliances, ipa-check nyo muna. Kasi baka hindi kayo namatay sa bagyo, namatay kayo sa electrocution. Next one, check for any damage including water pipes and help make necessary repairs as soon as possible. Repair agad as soon as possible. Stay away from flood waters kasi ano yung reason dyan? Okay, yung mga one of the most common disease kapag merong flooding is the leptospirosis. We cannot control that. Okay, hindi natin alam at hindi natin nakikita yung mga bacteria na nagkukos noon. Okay? So, it is better to stay away from flood waters. And clean and clear everything damaged by the typhoon. Then, stay in a safe place with a means of escape. Okay, so, those are the things that we have to do after the typhoon. Okay, now let us summarize our lesson. Okay, just to share with you, okay, bakit kailangan natin mag-prepare kapag merong bagyo? Failure to prepare is preparation to failure. Diba? Prevention is better than cure. Kung pwede pa maghanda, kailangan maghanda. Now, let us summarize our lesson. Okay? You can have the answers in this blanks, okay, on the pinned comment that I am going to post in the lesson thread of this particular video. So medyo matagal ko siyang ipa-flash para masagutan ninyo. And also, on your screen, you can post this one the time na pinapanood nyo na yung video na to. Okay? Yan yung next one. I-post nyo na lang yung video para masagutan nyo. And this one. Okay. Now, I hope you have understand our lesson for today, and I hope that this one is helpful, has become helpful for you in accomplishing your task as stated in your learning module. Okay. Now, just to check your understanding in our lesson for today, I am going to give you a 5-item quiz. Okay. You can write your answers on this particular quiz on the pinned comment as a reply on the pinned comment that I will be posting in the thread of this particular video. Okay. You can just pause para masagutan nyo, para mas mabasa nyo yung mga items natin. So this is number 1. This is number 2. What is the minimum temperature condition for a typhoon to form? And number 3, it is an area around the eye characterized by strong and rapid winds. Number 4, it is the center of a typhoon, characterized by low pressure area but with slow winds and sunny skies. And lastly, which of the following should be done before a typhoon? Prepare an emergency kit, charge cell phone batteries, listen to weather news updates on radios and televisions. All of them. Okay, as your assignment, in preparation to our next lesson, okay, which I am going to make another video lesson, okay, your assignment will focus now on the Philippine area responsibility. So number 1, describe the Philippine area responsibility. Number 2, how do we locate typhoon in the PAR or the Philippine area of responsibility? Okay, so again, I hope that this video lesson help you in accomplishing your learning task as stated in your module. And ano pa yung nakalimutan ko? And also, as I have said, as I start this video lesson, yung learning insight ninyo, just write maximum of 5 sentences learning insight kasama ng mga sagot ninyo dun sa previous questions that I have posted a while ago. Do not worry because wag kayong mag-alala kasi dun sa pinned comment na sinabi ko sa inyo kanina, okay, I am going to post there the questions that you have to answer. Okay? And the learning insight that you have gained from this particular video lesson. Okay? So, that's all for today. Okay? I hope to see you soon. Sana matapos itong pandemic na to. And para makaroon na tayo ng face-to-face interaction. Okay? So that I will not be asking you anymore to post comments on a particular pinned comment just to share your insights. Okay? Mas maganda kasi yung nakakapag-share tayo personally. Okay? So that's all for today. God bless and stay safe.